just below, show my screen up at the top?
Oh, yeah, mine's grayed out.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. No, it's not. It's going.
I just started
I'm
it, Kevin.
now.
Okay, good. Yay!
One of us started it.
Thank you. Technology is a wonderful thing. One of us started it.
I just started it.
So here we go. Sorry about that, folks. Here we go. So again, this is one of our webinars. I think all of you have seen these before. You're muted by default. If you have a question, type it in the box, and we appreciate that. So this is what we're going to go over tonight. It'll be relatively short. I want to explain what the capacity issues that we have in the Pacific Northwest District and what we're planning on doing about it. And so that'll be this is the important part of the change, because we're going to a little preview. We're going to add an event, and we'll talk to you about that in a sec. And then I'll tell you what it is you need to do for that. We'll also talk about what we learned this year about registrations and some of the things that we're going to change for next year. The second half of this, we're going to hopefully everybody got a copy of our new funding model document. It was sent out to a couple of different mailing lists. Hopefully you got a chance to read that, but we're going to, I'll briefly talk about that. Aaron and Cindy are here to also answer questions about that, and then we'll be done. This shouldn't actually last too long. All right. Let me tell you about registrations in the state of Washington, or well, in the Pacific Northwest. We have 148 teams, 42 teams in Oregon, 106 teams in Washington. That is actually down a little bit from last year. Not to belabor any sort of belly aching on our part, but there's a lot of people typing that. Staff people, can anybody hear me? Oh, they can hear me now. Okay. So, we also have a geography problem. So I'm going to flip it back and forth between these two slides for a sec. Let me show you the crux of the situation for us is these are this is our district. Each one of the yellow things is one of our events, and each of these red dots represents a team that has not been able to register for a second event yet. It turns out that there are about 21 teams in Puget Sound that are currently waitlisted trying to get in because all of the Puget Sound events are full. Ellensburg is full, and the two Portland events are full. One of our troubles at the moment is that Spokane and Corvallis are both under capacity. So I'm going to flip back here real quick, and I'll show you. You can see that both of the sort of Portland area events are full, and actually. Wilsonville actually even has a wait list going at the moment. Auburn Mountain View has 8 people on the wait list. Glacier Peak has 4. So you can see these numbers. Our trouble spots are that Philomath only has 24 and Spokane currently only has 22. We have to get those up to 28. So I'm really hoping that I can convince some of you to be, if you thought about traveling at all and are willing to travel for us, we would really appreciate your heading to one of those events. And our dear friend Naveed Shafa, who is, I believe Naveed is here. Naveed and I worked out that there's actually a fairly substantial bonus for you if you end up at one of the smaller events. On average, you take the number of points available at an event divided by the number of teams, and you're going to be able to you'll have a better shot at at winning points. So there is a little bit of advantage to you if you're kind of trying to figure out which your second event is. Going to one of the smaller events is actually beneficial. So back to our problem. We believe we'll have 150 teams. We need 300 plays. When you're trying to plan all of this stuff, we have the exact wrong number of teams. If we had 144 teams, we could do it with 9 events and spread things out properly. We're going to have to go to 10 events, and mostly that's because of geography. We're trying to avoid having all 21 of these teams have to travel for 5 hours to get to their second event. And actually, for some of these folks, it'll be their first event. So the plan is we are going to open an event at Shorewood. We did Shorewood last year. The Shorewood event is going to be on March 20th, 21st, and 22nd. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. We are going to cap it at 32. We are going to do a lottery system in order to get into that event. So if you are a team that is unhappy with your second play and you're from, we would hope to fill this with mostly the Seattle-based teams. We're not going to restrict you, but if we'd appreciate it if you're looking for an event that weekend. Let's let the Seattle folks go in there, because if you're going to have to travel anyway, my guess is that Central Washington is going to end up with some space. So that is our plan. So the Shorewood event, which will be right up here in Seattle, will be there. Now, I apologize, folks, by the way. And also I want to thank a lot of people have sent me emails and texts in the last couple of days. I had a death in the family. My father died last week, and I just got home early this morning. So if this presentation seems unprepared, it's because it is, and I apologize about that. But the web page is there, and I'm going to show you where to go. Here we go. If you go to the First Law website, and you go to Programs, and First Robotics Competition, and you come down here, there's the Shorewood interest list. What this will allow you to do is, if you are interested in moving one of your events to Shorewood, click on this page. There's simple instructions. You must be the main contact for the team. We will throw away any registrations that are not the main contact for the team. So that this is really intended just for the main contacts. Give us your first name and last name, your main contact email address as it shows up in RIMS, your team number, and then tell us what event it is that you intend to drop. If you are on a wait list, go ahead and, if you're currently on the wait list for an event, and that's the one you want to drop, go ahead and select that in this list. So this list is either you're registered for that event or you're on the wait list. And you're welcome to do that. You're welcome to start doing that actually right now. There is no rush. So think this through a little bit with your team. We need you to be done with this by 9 a.m. on Wednesday, November 12th. And I just realized I did not put the time on there. So you have until 9 a.m. on Wednesday, November 12th, which is a week from tomorrow, to decide that you would like to go to the Shorewood event. If we get less than 32 teams, everybody will make it in. If we get more than 32 teams, we will use a random number generator and assign everybody a random number, and then we will sort, and we will take the first 32 teams. Okay? We're trying to make it fair. We're trying to make it so that you don't have to race to do this. I want everybody to relax a little bit and take your time on that. All right? I'm hoping that made some sense. When this happens, if this happens, where's my map? Here's my map. What will happen is as soon as we can, we're hoping that first we'll be able to do this on November 12th. I expect to see some extra spaces open up in some of the other events. I fully expect that there'll be some spots opening up in Ellensburg. If you're already on the wait list in Ellensburg and you want to go to Ellensburg, just stay on the wait list. You don't need to do anything. If you're happy with the events that you already have, you don't need to do anything. We won't force anybody to change. And so if you're in angst about your current position on any of the waiting lists, my guess is that you will probably get in on November 12th, whereas you're registered. Okay. That was a fire hose. I hope that made sense to you. This is an agonizing decision, by the way, on whether to just increase capacity at all the other events or not. And the gating factor, and either decision has got really bad good pros and bad cons. But the reality is that we're looking at where the mass of the teams who haven't been able to register are, and so we've decided rather than increasing all the other event sizes to 36, we're going to just add another event and keep them all at 32. Okay? Now with that, does anybody have any questions about this part? We do. Caleb, Caleb has asked if there's a way, Caleb has asked if we can specify something more complicated, and Caleb, thank you, but no, we're not going to do that. That's okay. So there, I've answered that question. If we've put the dropped event and don't get into Shorewood, will we, yes. Okay, if you're entering that, okay, what am I trying to say? The correct way to say this is, if you sign up on this list and you do not get into Shorewood, nothing will change for you. You will not lose your place on the wait list. We will not remove you from your other event. You're merely telling us you would like to go to Shorewood. And we will put you into Shorewood. So if you are signing up for Shorewood and you get in, we are going to drop you out of your other event. If you don't get in, we will leave you 100% alone. Everything will be just as it is today. How did I do, Adrian?
Oh, you're doing fine.
Okay. The Shorewood event is a week 4 event. Let me pop back here. I apologize, I didn't put it on the list. It'll be the same week as Central Washington University, and with the caveat that this is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. We have that'll still be our third, we call them Sunday event. Okay. Will the Shorewood robotics team be allowed to compete in their own event even if they don't win the lottery? Yes. Up front to everybody, we always allow the hosting team, the home team, the option to play at their own event. That's one of the perks for hosting. Okay. Well, yay. There are no pitchforks. That's a good thing. Does anybody else have any questions on this, or shall I move on to the next item? Last chance for questions. Hopefully this was straightforward. And we're off.
Kevin, you have a couple people with their hands. Kevin, you have a couple people with their hands up. Maybe they should get their questions into the question box, because at this point in time, we're not going to unmute people to answer questions.
Well,
unless you change.
Yeah. So, how are you going to fill Philomath and Spokane if you allow teams to opt out to go to Shorewood? That is a great question. We really need people to step up and go to Philomath and Spokane. I can't force you to do it. Obviously, we couldn't get the 21 teams in Seattle to make the trek either, so I don't know the answer to that. If we can't fill Philomath, I don't know. We'll have to find out. Okay. Francis, we'll answer yours. Adrian, can you take that one? That question.
Yep, I got it.
All right.
I got it.
Okay, so a few things that we learned about registrations this year, just so that we were a little surprised, and I'm just going to show you all this real quick. Hang on one sec. Let me grab it over here. I want you to realize that we're not just shooting. We're just not shooting in the dark here. I think most of you know who Naveed Shafa is. Naveed is our one of our Vista interns, and is also part of the GameSense crew. Came up with these lovely maps. So if you ever wanted to see that, this is where the map came from. So we've been analyzing where all of the teams are coming from and where they're going to play. So here's all the teams in our district and where you decided to play. For the most part, things went as expected, except one of the interesting things was when you look at where these are where all of the teams for the Central Washington University event came from, and we were a little surprised at the just district-wide dispersion of that. Because if you compare it to the other events like, Auburn, it's mostly centered over here, or I'm saying Auburn Mountain View. Auburn is also very much centered here, and likewise, Wilsonville is very much centered around around Portland. This one surprised us and is probably one of the sources of confusion about, for us, why Philomath and Spokane didn't actually fill. Just the sheer number of teams that chose to go to Central, which is fine. You guys did, we offered it. It's no regrets or anything. That's just what it was. Okay? Great. I've been asked to put this page back up. This is, somebody's asking, where is that link? It's on Programs, First Robotics Competition. Come down here to the Shorewood interest list. I will be sending an email out to all of the teams with this, the basics of this information as well. So you'll also get an email from me in the next day or so. We're also, one of the things we're banking on is that a number of teams would like to do third plays. If your team is considering doing a third play, and we encourage you to do so, if you wouldn't mind, we would love to have you come down to First Robotics Competition, third play interest. On this site, this one, you can tell us your team number and whether you're considering a third play, or if you just want to tell us that you're not considering a third play, we'd love to hear from you as well. But let us know if you're thinking third play. That'll help us a lot in the planning of all this stuff. Okay, so off we go to the next item on our agenda. So one of the things that we did learn was that for 2016, just so you realize that we're going to try and do a better job of this next year. Michigan does something that we hesitated on, but now that we've been through this for 2 years, they're pretty smart folks over there. They seem to know what they're doing. Next year, your first registration will be based on the closest event to your home team. You can opt out of that system if you want, but we're going to make sure that everybody's playing at least one event that's closest to their home, so that you don't have to travel. And so we learned a little bit this time. We had some teams which is 100% valid, chose to enlist in their in remote places first as their first choice, and then their home as the second choice. And so we're going to change that next year so that I guess we do fully hear and understand some teams were unable to get into events close to home, and so we will deal with that next year. Hopefully we will make that better. Okay. The next thing on our agenda, and I apologize, like I said, I got home very early this morning. If we're done with this, I think Erin joined us.
Yes.
Erin, are you here? You are here. And Cindy, you're here. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Cindy.
I'm here.
Okay, so I'm hoping that everybody got the a copy of the documents that were sent around by Aaron and Cindy and I, having to do with how we're changing the funding model. And I'm looking to my email to bring that up, and for some reason I'm not finding it, but I'm going to in a second now. I have several hundred unread messages here. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I will open these and bring them over here. So you should have gotten these two memos. One of them is a memo just sort of explaining in a nutshell what this long document says. Let me hit it from a high level. You don't need to read this now. If you didn't get a copy, we're going to post these on our website tonight. You'll find them under that the FRC program directory. I'll show you where in just a sec. The basic idea is, and as we go around trying to raise money for teams, we end up confusing our donors. The reason is that we're out talking to the same companies that you're talking to, and they get confused because they've gotten approached by multiple teams. They're getting approached by us to help support teams. They're also getting approached by us to try and help support events and other things. And if you don't know a lot about FIRST, that can be really confusing to our donors. And they want to help, but they're confused at what the best way to help is, and they're also a little bit amazed at how many different requests they get for this FIRST thing. So this has been this is a long-term problem we've been having for, well, ever since I've been involved with all of this stuff. So we are going to try a different tact. We've been working on this very carefully for at least a year, maybe a year and a half, and we've had long discussions with FIRST about it. We've had long discussions with most of our major sponsors about it. What we're going to do is we're going to change the dialogue that we have with donors so that rather than us raising money for events and then also coming back and trying to raise money for teams and you guys going out and trying to raise money for yourselves, we're going to change the conversation and we are going to only raise money for teams. And so to do that, we are going to actually change the way that the program is paid for, and the way that we're planning on doing that is that there will be a rise in the fees, which is not real. It is real, but it's not real, so don't panic. The idea is that we are going to take the $3,000 a year that we spend in addition to your registration fees and make that part of your team fees. And the Pacific Northwest FIRST and Washington FIRST Robotics and Oregon FIRST Robotics have committed to raising that $3,000 on your behalf. But the way that the way this is going to help is it's going to allow us to change the conversation that we're having with donors so that they get to feel good and should feel good about the fact that they're out supporting N number of teams rather than coughing up a bunch of money to pay for an event or two, plus the teams, plus US FIRST, and plus our other special projects. So hopefully that made some sense to you. So this short document sort of explains at a high level what we're talking about. And then we also wrote this memo, or I wrote this memo, and you're welcome to read through this. I go into all of the gory details. I didn't get too gory, but and I'm not going to go through it here. But I just did want to show just so you get a feel for this. And let me make this bigger so you can see it. Just so you get a feel for what it is what we are trying to change is this is the story that traditionally we've had to go try and explain to donors. We've got teams and sponsors, we've got Washington FIRST Robotics, and we've got US FIRST. And you can see the sponsors are being asked for money for teams and asked for money for us, and we also ask for team grants so we can hand those out. FIRST is doing much the same thing. Honestly, this is so confusing that even our members of our board of directors don't understand where the money flows. It's terribly, terribly complex. So, again, you can read the gory details, but I was just going through the pictures here. What we're trying to change this to is something that looks like this. Sponsors can either donate to teams, and so your existing funding from your teams is awesome. Go for it. We are going to be out raising money for teams, not for events, not for our program overhead. And then to do that, we will be raising that money, and 3,000 of the money that we raise for each team is going to end up staying with us to pay off that that commitment. And then if we can raise more than that, and that is our sincerest hope and goal, is to be able to raise more than that, and that will start flowing back to you guys rather. So our ultimate goal is to make it so that the registration fees that you're paying are much less than they are right now. So that is the end goal in this whole thing. This is a lot more easier for the donors to see, to look at, to understand, and it'll also help us tell a better story. Now, one of the big changes that we're asking this year, and we are late, we apologize about this, so, but we are going to collect the money as Pacific Northwest first. If your team is already paid, don't worry about it. We're fine. We will deal with it behind the covers. But you are going to end up getting an invoice from Pacific Northwest first rather than first for your team registration fees. And again, we apologize for being very late on this. This is first was being very thoughtful to make sure that everything was done properly, and it is. We believe it is all being done very properly and in the least confusing way possible. Okay, so Erin, how am I doing? What else do you want to say?
You're doing great. Just a couple other points I'd like to make for the teams. Both Cindy and I are very committed in helping train, mentor, and support teams in terms of the business plans and the fundraising efforts. So I know a lot of mentors may not necessarily have a background or skill set in advocacy work and communications and fundraising. The good news is both Cindy and I do, and part of the kind of comprehension of the FIRST program is also on the business side. So we're working very hard with individual teams as well as in regions between Oregon and Washington in helping you connect the dots and support some of the fundraising efforts. Recognizing it is November 4th, we are rapidly kind of closing the window in, and you folks are going to be really busy during build season. This is a great introduction for what's to come after after next competition season, because a lot of funders want to support FIRST, but they believe that they're supporting them at a modest level, and we and they would like to support many other teams. And then I guess the final comment that I would make, many of the teams are have some generous supporters to begin with. This is we encourage you to keep those supporters. This is not we will be your #1 advocates for that because you have the relationship with them, but your supporters also have to recognize that that there are many other teams across the Pacific Northwest region that your team is interacting with and competing against, and just building that awareness that the PNW First, Washington First, Oregon First is a fantastic, are fantastic organizations to support, will be very, very valuable for many funders.
Erin, can I interject for a minute? We're having some people ask about the timeline for when invoices will go out, and also how that affects the Boeing grants. as far as, does that now go to Washington First Robotics? Does that go to U.S. First? Can you explain about that a little bit?
Sure, good question. So first, invoices. Invoices should be, you should be receiving these invoices probably within the next week to 10 days. As Kevin mentioned, I believe that there are 9 teams in the PNW First region that have already or are in the process of submitting POs with U.S. First. So don't worry about that. We will work behind the scenes with U.S. First, so you do not get duplicative invoices. And if you do, please contact me. Secondly, about the Boeing grant, I am working with Boeing right now to work through the mechanics on the facilitation. That is a grant that still U.S. First administers. So what we will likely do is work with U.S. First. They will likely send you the funds, but I will be in communication with all of the teams in Oregon and Washington on the funding.
Okay. Thank you, Erin. So I hope that you all get a chance to read this. You know, I'll just give you the Reader's Digest at the end of this thing. Is, you know, this program is this is a lot of work to implement for a bunch of volunteers, and I would never advocate anything I thought would put the program in danger or not cause it to improve. So I hope that you realize that, you know, that if this sounds a little bit scary, you know, change is always a little bit scary, but I think the reality is that in long term, this is going to be a really a positive move for us. First is, you know, the Pacific Northwest District is one of the strongest districts in the country in terms of organization and volunteers and community, and we're really proud of that. And First said that they look to us to try out stuff like this, and I think that this is actually going to be the trend that's going to happen nationwide eventually. This is not actually a new idea. It's been being bandied around for at least 10 years, but nobody else has been willing to step up and try it. And I think that we are ready to try it this way, and I think that we're going to probably end up setting the trend nationally. So I'm hoping that you guys can see that we are working to your benefit. Because the other thing is, you know, we've gone past the point where this is entirely volunteer driven. It has been for many years, but the reality is that it's being driven by 6 or 8 of us that put in at least 1,000 or 2,000 hours a year or more, and my hair is turning gray, and so I only have 3.5 years left at this, and so my goal by one of my biggest goals in pushing on this model to get it done is that this is a sustainable program after I'm gone, because it's completely unrealistic to think that we're going to find another group of volunteers that can handle putting in this much time for this long. It's just a unique set of people, a unique set of circumstances, but I think that having a professional or a paid staff to handle this sort of stuff is the right way to go. Okay. Mark has asked a couple of good questions. Does this affect funding we receive from smaller companies? No, you should be definitely going out and raising and doing everything that you're doing to raise funds right now. A lot of this, but do sort of tune in what Erin is saying about, you know, we're trying to build a large ecosystem, and you know your team's success is actually very much tied to the success of not only the FRC program, but also the FLL and FTC programs. And you know, making a large first ecosystem across the Pacific Northwest is really important. And so as you're raising money for your team, we're hoping that you can take a few minutes to realize that you are part of a much bigger ecosystem, and that ecosystem needs support, a broad base of support. So we're hoping that you're in addition to talking about all of the proud things that your team is doing, if you can be sure to allow your donors to realize you're participating in part of a very large and vibrant community of people interested in science and technology and education, and the hundreds of thousands of hours of volunteerism that take place, and the 500,000 hours of student involvement that take place every year. Those are very important parts of our story, and we need to be able to tell that as a group, as a collective.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kevin, this is Cindy. Can I just say something about that?
Yeah.
I just want to let everyone know that we're already seeing success with this model in regards to sponsors, where Marshall Stoll was introduced me to a company that was giving a little bit of money here and there to teams, but it wasn't a big chunk, and the company didn't want to have the administrative bothers to be giving to these teams necessarily. And so we got together with them and ended up getting more money for more teams and more of it. So it's something, if we can, and I've already talked to a lot of teams about this, working together and connecting with me so that maybe we can get a bigger force together and the company can see it as a real benefit.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Jeffrey's asked
one other good question was, we got asked about district championship. Will they be paying that fee to Washington First Robotic or to PNW First as well?
No, that'll go to US First.
So for the district championship in Eastern Washington University, they will pay US First?
Yes. I'm waiting for that is my yes. They pay US First. I don't think we're collecting that for them, are we?
No, we are not collecting that.
Okay. So yeah, so that'll and that may change next year. One of the big things, and again, if you end up reading through my entire document, one of the really difficult problems that we have is our donors who donate to us are we tell them that there's all of this money out there that we're raising on behalf of teens, but when they look at our tax returns, it's not there. So one of the reasons that we're going to be collecting the funds, almost all of the funds actually end up passing through to US First. We keep less than 20% of it. The reason for that is that it shows up on somebody's 990 form, so that when these donors come back to verify things, it's there. Currently, that money, if you remember that other chart, it's almost impossible for a donor to do due diligence and follow the money around. So that's why that's one of the biggest reasons that we're doing this funneling through Pacific Northwest First. Okay. There's some great questions coming up here. I'm going back up here. I apologize. I'm reading, so I'm not just sitting here. Okay. Well, thank you, Mark. Mark says it does first have a story that we can provide to the smaller companies, something that we've put together. And Aaron and Cindy have been working on the messaging for that, and they actually have a wonderful one-on-one system for working with teams on fundraising and about the messaging. And so I'm going to defer to Aaron on that. Aaron, do we have anything ready to go for them, or are we still working on that?
We do. We have, as you can imagine, every donor is a little bit different. So what we have found is it's best to maybe work with the teams one-on-one in terms of talking about specific donors, so we can customize a couple of our tools, whether they're PowerPoints or a letter or a presentation that immediately addresses their needs. Because in the world of fundraising, typically smaller funders then become medium size and then grow into larger donors, right? So it's all about stewarding those funders that give to teams, showing them the relevance of their investment for your team, and as Cindy said, how they can become excited in knowing that there are other, in addition to your team, there are other opportunities to make an impact on other students' lives. So happy to work with you, Mark.
And you know, I think a slight rewording of this might actually be advantageous. You know, sometimes if you're going out as a one-off, so you show up as a single team and they don't know much about the program, and you're asking them for money and they don't really know what FIRST is, it's actually in your best interest to talk about the size and scope of the program, because then they realize that this isn't just a bunch of kids coming in asking for money to do something that they're unclear of. You know, telling them the entire story and why you guys are excited to participate is really important, and I think that some of our best funded teams don't just talk about themselves, they actually talk about the whole ecosystem. Okay? All right. Well, I think I want to thank everybody for that. I also want to be very thankful for your time, so I'm going to actually wrap this up. We're going to stop the recording, and I think the official part has ended. We will sit here and ask questions for as long as you'd like, but I'm going to just give a really quick review of the various web pages, because I know some of you have asked that. So if you are trying to go to, here it is. So once again, to find that page for Shorewood, you're going to go to the Shorewood interest list. If you're going to tell us that you would like a third play, that'll be on the third play interest list. A link to the recording to this and to the 2 documents that we just showed you will be under webinars. And it'll actually be, if you click on webinars, they will end up in this section just a few minutes after I hang up. Okay? So you'll be able to get both the memo, the description of the full text of what's going on in terms of funding. You'll also there'll also be the link to the recording. Okay. With that, I think we are done. So thank you so much for attending. Adrian, you can go ahead and stop the recording, and we will not be offended if you want to drop off. We also will just sit here and answer questions for a little while. Our third play points the same as last year, or do they align with the new points announced from